Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast for those who want to read deeply and get wisdom. I'm Angelica, and today I'm discussing Till We Have Faces, chapters 5 and 6, with Adeline, who is 15, and Esther, my daughter, who's 14. This book is getting so good, and the characters are really growing on us in surprisingly different ways. Let's jump into this great conversation. So, Adeline, will you give us just a summary of what happened in these chapters?
Yes. So the priest came in the previous chapter, but now he's explaining why he's there. And in short, there's this plague that's going on, and it's because of someone. And the priest says that Anget demands a sacrifice. So the priest goes on to say that it's Psyche. They say that Princess Istra is the one that has to be sacrificed. So Oriel is very distressed. She asks her father to spare Psyche, but take her instead. So she's very distressed. Psyche is locked up, and now Oriel tries to get in to see Psyche. The captain of the guard, Bardia, is guarding the door, but Oriel is so distressed that he eventually allows her to go in. And now we're going to see what she's going to say to Psyche.
So let's talk about the scene when the priest shows up. So you've got the priest, the fox, Oriel, and King Throm all in this conversation. So what else are your thoughts from that scene?
They said the priest looked like a vulture.
Mm-hmm.
That was really weird, and he did not seem like someone who gives off good vibes. But I honestly would like to talk more about the priest, because he seems like actually like an amazing person. Well, go ahead. He seems like a completely obedient old man. Like, he's walked in the path of the gods. He's obedient. He doesn't seem like he thought immediately that it was the king. He's not doing this to get rid of Psyche. He's doing it for the people. I mean, I don't think has ill intentions, and he almost died from this plague.
I feel very differently about the priest. I do not think the priest has good intentions. He was jealous of Psyche. That's what I think. And that probably comes from just, if you tell me a priest of a pagan god, I'm going to think, okay, they're going to have all the prophecies that will benefit themselves. I have seen an omen. Turns out it's the person that's taking away my glory, that it's the cursed one. Let's get rid of him, So I feel very differently about the priest.
Let's see who's right on that. I don't think they'll tell us.
No, it's not really a focus.
I think he's jealous of God's jealousy. Well, I don't know. See, I have very mixed opinions, because I think it's wrong for them to take vengeance on Psyche. And I was like, because she's innocent. But is she innocent because she intentionally tried to heal people?
Uh-huh.
Like, after, even, she went out by herself to go try to heal people. And that's also, like, acting like you're a god.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And in defense for your position, I guess one of the big themes of Greek mythology is the hubris of mankind is punished. So if you think that Istra is trying to be like, or taking the glory from a god, then she deserves to be punished.
So if she's not, she should not be.
Yep.
So.
See, I didn't like him because he talked bad about the box. So he kind of made a directed comment towards Box. I don't know exactly what he said, but in the context that he said it, it was something like, well, at least it's not a Greek soldier who's not man enough to fight back. And so he laid down his arms and got captured. And that's how the fox became a slave to the kingdom of Glome. And so it was a very directed comment. And it's just very, like, the audacity that he had to say that to the fox. I mean, of course, we know the fox better than he does. But he's the king's advisor, for goodness sake. Like, he's obviously smart. He's obviously got all these things that most common people don't. So he should be respected regardless if he's a slave or not. But the priest made this terrible comment about him that was in the past. He doesn't seem as much as a coward now, I don't think. Because at the beginning, we know that he was willing to commit suicide rather than be taken to some mines. But
that sounds even more cowardly.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know how, I think he's developed a lot more because he does talk back to the king. That's not a cowardly thing. That's a brave thing to do, to say that I would never try to sacrifice my daughter. I would lay down my life for her before I would do that. So I don't know.
Adam, when you were talking, it made me realize to make fun of the way someone became a slave is a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
It's like
true.
you're making fun of their worst moment, and which has led to their captivity. It's really bad. Oh, I keep saying this. Okay, it's about so many characters, but I think the fox and the priest are opposites.
Definitely with their religious views, the fox is kind of atheist, whereas the priest is, well, a priest. He's a priest on it. He firmly believes in gods.
They're both kind of wise in their own ways, and they can retort back to each other, basically like to prime people to watch in like an argument.
I think they're totally different views of the world, where Fox is logical and the priest is totally not logical. He's spiritual. Yeah, spiritual. And so they despise one another because those views are at odds with each other. In that conversation, they had so many paradoxes. Here's one. Let's see. Some say the loving and the devouring are all the same thing. The sacrifice will be eaten or married.
I have a firm suspicion that the god of the Grey Mountain is Cupid, the son of Ungit, and so he is also the brute. This is what sounds really funny. So apparently he's either the male form of Ungit, or he's her son, or he's the same person as her, just the male. Also, he sounds like a monster.
Yeah.
Which goes along with the myth, definitely. He was described as kind of a monster by the prophecy, not literally, because he's not human. So everyone assumed that he was a monster.
Also, he's faceless. The brute was behind a lion, right, in the shepherd's jury. And so he couldn't be clearly seen. He was faceless, essentially. But they, I think, are saying that all things spiritual are not clear. I think that is an argument like the priest makes. Or I don't know if it's the priest or Oriel, but that's why nothing that is said clearly can be said truly about them. Holy places are dark places, which matches reality in some sense, but also not. In spiritual reality, you do have some mystery. You can never fully know, but you also do have clarity where God has revealed himself clearly. Okay, why was the priest more powerful than the fox? Because really it was a battle, right? The fox gave his arguments. I can't remember what his argument was, but I know Oriel was like, that's where he lost. And then the priest won.
I think the fox lost because he was saying that the shepherd did not see the brute. He saw a shadow. And so the priest is like, well, some people say that the shadow is the brute. So I think that the fox's logical reason doesn't resonate as much with the spiritual of the argument. So if you're in a spiritual argument, then logic's not going to get you anywhere, I think is kind of what it was doing. Yeah.
I agree. That reminds me of a paradox that they talked about. This was one of Fox's arguments against the priest. Okay, how could the accursed be the perfect victim? First, the priest says, this is the most evil, wicked person. And now the priest says, this has to be the best person. How could it be both? So the fox doesn't believe a paradox can exist, which is not true. In the spiritual realm, there's all kinds of paradoxes that are actually true. So
there are three persons and one God. That is a paradox because three people can't be one person at a time in the human perspective, but in spirituality, they can.
So I think both the fox and the priest are wrong. Maybe I love the fox. I guess this is what's interesting. I like the fox better, but he's wrong, I guess. I don't like the priest at all, but he's actually right about some things. So I don't know.
Some big, politics thing, I guess. You like someone, you don't like the way that they're doing these specific things, or you hate this person, but at least they're right about this. Yeah, that's a big political thing.
I think that's why Oriel is so awesome, because she has the fox's logic and the priest's other thing, because she fears the priest and she thinks he's right.
Yeah.
Esther, you were right. Medieval, she was the cause of this. literally spot on because she says that I didn't mean for any of this to happen. And then Oriel says that she did not know what she was doing at the time and how big her crime would actually be. So you were literally spot on. Oh, also, I think Redevil is gonna die somehow, but it has to be after she has a kid because of Oriel's nephew. So what if Redevil dies like out of grief of, like, oh, these are the consequences of my actions. Or like she has a kid and then she dies because her life is just so pitiful, or she thinks so. But I think it's going to be a selfish death. Oh. Like she's going to live a selfish life and then realize what she's done, but then she's going to also have a selfish death, which is like a suicide or self-pity or something of the sort.
Don't kick off a cliff.
Exactly.
But her nephew could be Psyche's kid.
That would be interesting.
Or her dad has another kid.
Nobody is going to marry that man. He is the true accursed one. Is him.
I think Redevil's gonna die sad because no one wants to marry her because her dad's such a loser.
Well, she felt bad, but Oriel knew if she gets a new brooch or a boyfriend, she'll be fine. So
Yes.
she's so shallow. What do you think of the king now?
The king is the most interesting character I've seen in a long time. Well, actually, I want to know what happened to him in his childhood.
Ooh.
Because he does not act like a well-bred child would. He looks like someone who was mistreated as a child.
By women. This is just a funny quote. Are gods and priests and lions and shadow brutes and traitors and cowards not enough unless I'm plagued with girls as well?
I agree that he's definitely interesting. He's never consistent except in his anger. Like, he's very random. He's got these moments of tenderness that you wouldn't expect. But the priest was like talking, and I don't even know what it was, but I don't think he was going like fast enough or something. Or he said something like, it's a part of the king's bloodline. And so he was like, are you talking about me? And then he goes up to him and puts a knife near his waist or in between his ribs or something. And the priest doesn't flinch, but he's like so angry for no reason. And that's the only consistent thing. He's always angry for no reason.
Oh, I want to say, I think that the reason that Throm was so angry to the point where he might kill the priest is because as soon as someone started saying, we know what's wrong with the kingdom, he is the opposite of Oriel. He's totally self-centered. So he's like, it's me. I know it's me. You're going to say it's me. And so that's why he was getting angrier and angrier, because as the noose shrunk around the community by lot, and it turned out it's in the king's family, then he knows, okay, it's definitely me. And that's why he was willing to kill, so threatening toward the priest. But then that's why when it turned out it's actually not him, he's like, oh, my daughter, that's terrible.
Naturally, people think there's a problem in the kingdom. They're gonna go for the king. So he didn't have a bad point there. I mean, he behaved wrongly, no doubt. But he was definitely correct in guessing. Okay, so there's something's wrong with the kingdom. Nothing's doing well. I didn't have sons. There's blah, blah, blah. And so whose fault is all that? It's the king's fault,
Yeah, he actually, if he was a man of integrity and things are not going well in his kingdom, he should think, this is probably my fault. I wonder what I'm doing wrong. But no, that's not what he was thinking.
Oh, he was thinking, oh, he's gonna say me. I have to kill him so that no one else will find out. Yeah. It's so, like, self-centered.
Self-preserving.
He looks like the type of kid that was like, he's a very drunk youngest person who's like just happens to become the king that doesn't really deserve it. And so he wasn't trained in that way, but he was just completely like earned his way there through bribery and ill usage. He doesn't have enough self-control. He's naturally gonna go the worst way he can.
I think the thing that shocked me was the king's tenderness. That was so weird. So, like, she's throwing herself down at his feet, and he like kicks her all, and it maims her. Really, she's terribly hurt. But after everyone leaves, he picks her up and puts her in a chair and like takes a goblet of wine and puts it to her lips and tells her that she needs to take like a slab of meat and put it on her bruises so that it'll stop the swelling. And he's like, I'm sorry I had to do that, but it still wasn't right. And he even like says later, don't make me beat you twice in one day. But it was like a moment of tenderness that was really weird, like out of character. And I don't know if it's because like she called him father, because that was the first time she had ever called him that. But I don't know. It was weird.
Which it surprised Oriel too.
Yeah.
Right. And here is the quote. She says, "My father's hands were gentler than I expected. I have found since that a soldier's hands often are." And it was a surprise. And also it kind of made me wonder, like, what else will she experience? Because she says, like, now I know. I'm like, what else? What other soldiers had to be tender to her later? Was there any part in these chapters that you had an emotional reaction to?
Her fight with Bardia.
I got a really good quote from that actually right here. So she finds a sword to attack Bardia with so that he'll let her in. And she says, even in my woman's rage, I had man enough about me to cry out, "Ward yourself, Bardia," before I fell on him. It was, of course, the craziest attempt for a girl who had never had a weapon in her hand before. Even if I had known my work, the lame foot and my pain in my side, to breathe was deep agony disabled me.
That was really bizarre. How she ran, got a sword, and tried to kill him, and how strong she was. So it was really cool. But it made me really sad because of his reaction to her.
What was that reaction?
He was very sad, and he said, "You would have been such a good man." And then she was just crying and yelling and trying to stab him.
And it was such a pitiful attempt. It was that was the emotional part to me. Like she was so desperate. It's this terrible, desperate attempt, but she still cannot beat Bardia. In the end, he just disarms her. He doesn't hurt her, but he does disarm her quickly.
Doesn't he just grab her sword?
I think so.
He's like, just grabs the sword and is like, just stop it, kid. He's awesome.
That was the most emotional part for me too. It just kind of made me want to cry. To try so hard, but to be helpless in the end is just sad.
Those are what my worst nightmares are.
I mean, she did get in, though. So once she did, actually it worked.
Her bravery.
Yeah.
And his sweetness. So he is the captain of the guard, and he cares a lot about Psyche. And the reason he's the sentry is because he wants to be able to take care of her. And he's really sweet. But he likes the people more than the king. And he thinks that Psyche needs to get sold to the Green Mountain, even though that it would be horrible for her, so that he can save the people. And I think that's very valiant.
One interesting quote to me that he said is, "I wonder, do the gods know what it feels like to be a man?" And it actually reminded me of Christ, because the God does know what it's like to be a man, which is something so special that the Greek mythology doesn't have.
I think Bardia, in that, when he says that, he's like looking down on Oriel, like she's on the floor sobbing her eyes out, and she's aching with all these bruises and things, trying to get to her sister. And he sees just such this pitiful attempt, and he just can't not let her in the end. Like, it's such a desperate attempt that he takes pity on her and says, all right, you can have this long, but until I give you 3 knocks, then you have to come out.
It's also an accusation against the gods. You know, like, do you even know what you're making us go through? So accusation against the gods, right? The whole book is. So far, where do you think that will go? What is the accusation against the gods?
Oriel thinks that Psyche's dead, and so she does all these things, but then finds out she's alive, and it's because the gods had tricked her into thinking she was dead. Something of the sort. Like, she's convinced of this one thing, but the gods revealed it to be another. And then she's like, okay, what the heck, guys? I was believing this thing the whole time. You tricked me into doing these bad things.
Yeah, somehow there's got to be you did this. And some accusations where you don't know what it's like, right, to be a human, clearly.
I was surprised how honorably Oriel was thought of by all the people, actually. Like Bardias, said, you would have made a great swordsman. And the king says, I'm tired of having Greeks be my guide, so here you are, and you're as smart as them, so you're gonna be my right-hand person. And stuff like that. They're treating her like she's a man. And that's cool, because she just seems like a very smart and wise person.
Yeah, good question.
What surprised me was when I wasn't surprised when her dad was like, look at yourself in the mirror. And she'd never seen herself in this mirror that's actually clear, but she never comments on how she looks.
Yeah, I was expecting her to be like, look so terrible that I suddenly didn't blame anyone who had called me so, or like something like that, or like I looked like a monster or something. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't calm, looking at yourself unflinchingly.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he grew tender, told her right after that.
Is it?
Maybe she was just so focused on Psyche that she didn't really care.
Yeah, my sister is going to be sacrificed. I don't care how I look. Let's move on. Which is probably one thing we love about her. She is not self-oriented. Solve a lot of connections to Christ in these chapters.
They're gonna get hung on a tree.
Oh, does the sacrifice, the accursed one, get
They
hung
hung on a tree and then they leave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Abandoned on a tree.
Yeah, but they were actually hung. I think they stayed alive.
Yes.
I think Oriel trying to make herself the sacrifice in Psyche's place was Christ-like.
Mm-hmm. Here's Oriel's quote. Actually, I'm not sure who says this. It's only sense that one should die for many in the principle of the accursed one. And then I think directly after that, Oriel says, give me instead.
Yes.
All right. What questions do you have, or questions or predictions as you read forward?
Who is the main character? Well, we know it's Oriel, but are we following Oriel's life or are we following Psyche's?
When Psyche is sacrificed, will everyone think that she's dead? And then they'll find out that she's not. And so that's when Oriel goes up to the Great Mountain and fights her.
Oh, okay.
Are we going to entirely leave the Psyche story? I think we are going to. I mean, I don't think it's connected. It's like reading the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and deciding to follow the story of the Queen or something like that, you know?
Or Dopey. Well, when Snow White dies, we just follow Dopey around for a few years. And then Snow White raises up and we're like, oh, is this the story?
I guess, who will be the ultimate hero of the story? Because this is C.S. Lewis. He's a Christian. It has to be an ultimate hero. Esther, you think it's Cupid, right?
I think it's Oriel.
Oriel? Okay, well, I know that you think that Cupid is going to be a great person.
I do think so, but then I don't know if he's actually going to be in here at all.
We gotta meet the brute.
But I want to know how the king dies, because I honestly...
Me too! Every week! That's what someone says.
So really, see if you want to hear my opinion. I think Psyche's going to get hung up on a tree, and we're not going to hear a thing about her for the rest of the time. I think we're following Oriel around the way she becomes a queen, the way she does her affairs, this thing. I don't think it has anything to do with the other thing.
Well, that would be infuriating as a reader.
Yes.
I love trying to pick out these tiny details. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Reading through this book slowly makes it a mystery. Yeah, because you have to wait for the answers, and it actually gives you some space to make predictions and, try to figure things out. Oh, this book is so good in its variety of characters. And this conversation really made me think and question, what presuppositions am I coming in with? Why does the priest hit me differently than Esther? And it's really cool that happened through a conversation with my own daughter. Thanks for joining us. Next time, we'll talk about chapters 7 and 8.